And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension and everything and the drama.
How dare! Look at this! How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
I feel like calm down is a word in two markets that we follow. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Live news pack for Tuesday, the November the 8th. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. As it may be cold outside in both Calgary and Vancouver, but the heat is certainly on both of these, the Flames and the Canucks markets, in terms of some of the comments made in the media the last couple of days. So we're going to touch on that. The Seattle Thunderbirds added a significant piece to their lineup today. So we'll touch on that. So some WHL news, 11 games in the NHL. We'll touch on those, as well as I didn't get to something yesterday that we will get to today. If you have any comments, questions, put them in the chat. We will get to them. But we're going to start with the Flames. Flames are in action tonight against New Jersey, and Vancouver is in action tonight against the Ottawa Senators. But we'll touch on the Flames first, who played last night. They played against the New York Islanders. They had a 3-1 lead, and another lead, 2-goal lead, has evaporated from the Flames, and they come away with a loss. It's been a big story in Vancouver, the number of leads that the Canucks have lost. The Flames have been doing that, as stumbling a bit in this area as well. They lost the lead against the Oilers. They lost a 2-goal lead against the Kraken, and then they lost the lead against the Islanders last night. I did come away with the point, with the overtime point, 4-3, but still a loss is a loss, and they have lost 5 in a row. So things not looking great in Calgary. And there's been the last little bit since this whole line change fiasco happened, moving Lucic with Lindholm, moving Huberdeau with Kadri, creating the Backlund, Coleman, Dubé line. Daryl Sutter has not felt the love from some Flames fans. Certainly a lot of question about his deployment of lines and who he's playing, who he's not. And he made some comments last night and today around that has certainly stirred the Flames pot. So we'll get there. We'll start here. He talked about last night, of course, going through last night. Of course, you have no Chris Tanev. You have no Michael Stone, who's on IR. And, of course, you have no Oliver Shillington due to personal reasons. So you're missing three of your main defensemen, and 2 Tanev and Shillington that are in your top 4. So you had Nick DeSimone make his NHL debut last night, played 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And you also had Connor Mackey play 10 minutes and 9 seconds. Mackenzie Weegar and Nikita Zadorov played over 25 minutes. And Rasmus Andersson played 27 minutes. Noah Hannafin played 26 minutes. So he talked about that, and he talked about there was a number of young guys that did not put the pressure on the veterans, and the this real other part of what Sutter said last night that isn't getting as much play was that the players are going to find it within themselves to push each other. And then today he talked about the depth of this defense. He said it's bullshit. His words. He said he played them too much. He played the top four, and by Anderson, Hanov, Uyghur, Zadorov too much. And yeah, Nick DeSimone, in some ways, this is probably more of a cap call up because you had to call up DeSimone and Gilbert as opposed to Milosh, who makes a little bit more. And Tanev is on the trip. We could see him soon. So I imagine that switches to Nicholas Milosh. But I saw a lot of comments about the criticisms of Sutter's remarks about not playing the kids here, and I have to agree with him on this. I know I'm not going to be the popular human on this, but I tend to agree. I think looking at what was expected here, I don't think Connor Mackey has taken full advantage of the step and the opportunity that he has been given. I probably could use a little bit more time in the American League. Juuso Välimäki, of course, he was placed on waivers. He went to Arizona, and you could argue how effective Juuso Välimäki is in Arizona, and you could argue that he didn't get a fair opportunity in Calgary. I thought he was given as much as he took. If you remember the last year's camp, Oliver Shillington, who's now a top four, who's one that the Flames majorly miss, was not expected to be given that opportunity to be in a top four, but he took the step and took it. They didn't see it necessarily from Välimäki. They're not seeing it now from Connor Mackey. So in terms of getting that defense, that step up, they're not necessarily seeing it at this particular point in time. And you can argue that they need that Sutter. I think that there's this perception that Sutter won't play the kids, but I don't think that that's true. I don't think he's seen. And remember, before this road trip, Sutter, Huska, and the coaching staff were at the Wranglers game, so they got an opportunity to see where the young players are at, and they haven't seen much yet. And then you look at the forwards. This is another part. A lot of people are arguing about Matthew Phillips. I think that there's some validity actually to the Matthew Phillips argument. He's got 11 points. He leads the team in scoring. He's one of the top scorers in the AHL. I do think that there's a lot that is worthy of an opportunity for Matthew Phillips to get a look. He cleared waivers, so if a team takes an opportunity here to take a Juuso Välimäki, there are teams that do pick up players on waivers. If a team saw something in Matthew Phillips that would have fit within their organization, they would have taken him. Now, maybe that ends up being a miss, and some organizations are going to regret that. That's entirely possible. We've seen that as well. But it doesn't. I'm not sure in terms of what is needed from Matthew Phillips right now, what Matthew Phillips gives, that the Calgary Flames particularly need this. And Dan and I have had this long chat from Fireside Podcast. We've chatted about this a couple of times. And he said, if you want to see Phillips, if you want to see Pelche, if you want to see Zeri, go Sunday afternoons. You'll catch them at the Wranglers game. And I think that I kind of am with Dan on the fact that you need to marinate these kids a little bit longer. I don't think that they're ready. I don't think that Jacob Pelche, Mike Gould responded to my point there, and he said probably ready. And I think that was an interesting word that he used. He said probably. He didn't say he's absolutely ready. And I'm not trying to push the wording on here, but that tells me there needs to be a little bit more work being done for these players to take the next step in their development. So, and it's not necessarily a bad thing for that to happen. Some things take time. I'm not calling them busts. I just think that they need work. That the Wranglers so far are, as we look at the standings here, and they played, by the way, they played the San Jose Barracuda tonight. If you're a Barracuda follower, follow Liz Child. She always has some great Barracuda contact out there. 4-5, 9 after 9 games, sitting 7th, 1 point behind the Barracuda, in the Pacific Division standings. You look at the scoring with the Wranglers, and you have, just looking here as at that at the scoring here for the Wranglers, you got Matthew Phillips, who's sitting 5th in the league with 13 points. Again, that's probably a guy that I think there's a legitimate argument to see Matthew Phillips. I won't dispute that at some point, I think. But I look at Connor Zary, he's got 9 points, but he's also sitting at a -10. I know that some people don't like the plus-minus stat, but -10, when I see others in a plus and are on a -3, I'm curious. And I thought Zary had a pretty good camp, and part of me would like to see him, but maybe they're not quite there yet. Radim Zahorna had an opportunity to play on the third line at the last preseason game. Didn't look ready. He's got 9 points in 9 games. That's not bad. Jacob Pelche, 7 points in 9 games. But in terms of camp, I don't know if he took that step that they wanted him to take. So they're going to give him the time. So, and again, where, like, are you putting Matthew Phillips in a top 6 role or a bottom 6 role if he's on this lineup? That's the other question that Dan and I have discussed. I don't think you're bringing up Phillips or Pelche or Zary to be a 13th forward. That's not effective for them. So bottom line is, I don't think that the kids are not quite ready, and they need some more development. I think we could say that about Jeremy Poirier. I mean, Cole Schwint doesn't have a goal yet here for the. Of course, he was part of the the trade. He doesn't have a goal. He has 6 assists. So I think that I think they need to see a little bit more from a few players in the Wranglers lineup, and a little bit more success probably in the Wranglers lineup before you start saying that there's a legitimate argument to bring them up. That's kind of where I'm at. And it may be looked at as an old crotchety human being that doesn't like those children, the youth of today. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's successful organizations develop and overdevelop. That's one of the things that everyone has admired about the Yzer plan. Is that sort of that philosophy? You let them develop. And so, in terms of that, would they add something? I don't know. I think right now the issue here with the Flames, a lot of focus on Jonathan Huberdeau, but Andrew Mangiapane has struggled the last few games. No shots in 3 games. Nazem Kadri hasn't been producing lately. Either they need to get their forward group they need to produce a lot more than they are right now, and so Jonathan Huberdeau as well. And really would encourage you, by the way, to listen to Eric Francis's interview. And you may not like Eric Francis, and that's okay. I'm not saying like Eric Francis, but I happened to stumble on the interview that Eric Francis did with Mason Raymond. And Mason Raymond, of course, former Canuck, former Flame, former Leaf. He talked about signing to the Flames as a free agent and the adjustment it took for him to get used to this organization and the culture and all of that. That's what Jonathan Huberdeau is going through. I think that's what Mackenzie Weegar is going through. And in some ways, I think that's what Nazem Kadri and even Kevin Rooney, to a lesser extent, are going through. And this is where I'm sort of not necessarily extremely concerned for the Flames right now. I know it's a 5-game losing streak. I know that they're currently in the second wild card spot. But I also think that this team has had so much change put on them. I mean, Lindholm is playing with players he hasn't played with before. He's never played with Jonathan Huberdeau before. And you got Tyler Toffoli, he played 7 games with before the season started. After spending a good chunk of seasons with Johnny Gaudreau, that's an adjustment. You also got the adjustment with Lindholm just to stay on that point of a guy that was in the Selke Trophy conversation. He's in a new stratosphere. So teams are preparing for him differently. So this has been a tremendous adjustment for Elias Lindholm. Huberdeau, Weegar, anybody that has moved, switched cities, knows it takes time to adjust. You're going through the process, I imagine, just from the trade perspective of the shock of the trade. You had contract decisions come up for both of Huberdeau and Weegar. It's just going to take time for them to develop a little bit more. So I'm not overly concerned with the Flames. I think that this is. I'm actually in some ways okay with this. Not okay with a 5-game losing streak, but I think that there's a process with this team this year that didn't happen last year. Last year was ultimately kind of a cruise control year for most of the year. They won the Pacific. We ended up talking about Gaudreau's individual marks, Lindholm individual marks, a number of individual marks as well. And they haven't been on the road. This is their second road game. That was their first road game outside of Alberta. It just feels like there's a lot more that's happening and developing at this point that I think that in these waters in Calgary, I think in general, I would recommend calmness and not panic. I don't think that a 5-game losing streak is ideal. I don't think that losing tonight against New Jersey is ideal. I think some of the play has been, I think they played pretty well for 2.5 periods and didn't quite get it done. But I want to see what the process is as the year goes on. I think that this is sometimes Daryl Sutter does his best work when the team isn't great. Remember, he won the Cup with the LA Kings. They were a bottom team. Remember the 2004 Cup run with the Flames. They were on the 6th seed. So sometimes he does his best work when the team is sort of in the underdog. So let's see where the team is right now. That's kind of, cause for concern, sure. But there's a process here. And I think that this team didn't have that process, and they didn't lose last year. They did not have an injury concern, not major injury concerns last year. This year they do. That changes a number of different things. And a lot of teams, I heard Haley Salvian and Peter Labardius talk about this earlier. A lot of teams can't lose. It's tough when you lose 3 major defensemen out of your lineup, and really 4. Let's not, I'm not saying again, I've said this before. I'm not saying Eric Gudbranson was the greatest defenseman of all time, but I think he's missed. I think he is ultimately, they miss. He was a good penalty. Him and Tanev were good penalty killers. You don't have that in that situation. So they're missing a lot in the blue line. And again, Mackenzie Weegar is adjusting as well. So process with the Flames. Process. They're playing a very good New Jersey Devils team. Mackenzie Blackwood out with an injury for 3 to 6 weeks. Vitek Vanacek, I think one of the quiet surprises of the year, struggled last year in Washington. Seems to be getting his game going there. New Jersey is a very exciting team. We saw that last week when they came through Western Canada. This is their first home game, though, in a while. And you always have that, first game of a road trip kind of lull. Could be an opportunity for the Flames here to jump on the Devils early and see if they can get that going. By the way, just looking at Kadri's game marks here, Kadri has not scored in 5 games, has 2 assists in that time, and is a -3. So just watching, just in terms of that, Kadri's not on a roll at this particular point in time. So that's what's going on with the Flames. As for the Vancouver Canucks, Oh boy, I don't know what to. They play tonight against Ottawa. So we'll touch on Ottawa here in a second, but Rutherford called out the team structure. He called out the play of the team overall. Talked about needing to getting to the place where they need to get younger and get draft picks. It's kind of the same repeated message that Jim Rutherford has been speaking for the last since he came here in December. The one thing he did not do again is give an endorsement to Bruce Boudreau. In a lot of ways, he criticized Bruce Boudreau and when you talk about structure. And one of the things that I feel like with Vancouver is the pall over the head is you just feel like there is a major something about to drop. And I think that this has been going on for a year. We had the question with JT Miller. You had the question with Bruce Boudreau. The questions around what you do with Bo Horvat. And there's just a bit of it's a bit of a pall, a bit of a dark cloud over the Vancouver, the hockey team. One sense, you feel like Bruce Boudreau is kind of in a lame duck, awkward situation. I thought he had a great quote today when he was asked about Rutherford's comments. He said, "It's probably in my 47 years of hockey, something that I will add in the book I will never write." He kind of shrugs it off. I like Bruce. I genuinely think Bruce Boudreau is a really good human being. I'm a big fan of him in terms of that. But he wasn't the coach at Rutherford and now being hired. Aquilini hired Boudreau. And then you have the other part of the problem now is you've got a number of staff that are still in the books in Vancouver from the previous regime. Does ownership want to add Bruce Boudreau to that pay for not work sort of thing? That's the awkward part. And then the leads are being blown. Happened a lot in Vancouver. That's been a big talking point. But they're heading into Ottawa tonight, and this Ottawa team, Peter Dorian had to come out yesterday and say that DJ Smith's job is safe, and Ottawa is the second worst team in the Eastern Conference, 4-7. They've stumbled along here. I mean, they've lost Josh Norris. That's a significant injury. They just are getting Cam Talbot back. But don't think that this team was expected to be 4-7 and second last in the Eastern Conference. I think a lot of people were expecting a little bit more. I mean, you acquire Claude Giroux by free agency. You make the Alex DeBrincat trade. You bring in Cam Talbot. A lot more is expected. Was expected. So there you are with the Ottawa Senators. So should be an interesting game. It looks like Brock Besser should get back in the lineup for Vancouver. Here it's a back-to-back. So you've got Ottawa, you've got Montreal tomorrow. I think from Vancouver's perspective, these are two winnable games. And maybe the heat gets off if you start to win these games a little bit here. But we'll see. Ottawa, there's some pressure in Ottawa. Not as much pressure in Montreal, but pressure in Ottawa as well. There are, including Calgary, New Jersey, Vancouver, Ottawa, we've got 10 other games in the National Hockey League. Let's touch on them here as we go through lineups, etc. By the way, with the Devils as well, Andre Palat out long term too, and that was a significant forward acquisition to the Devils last in the offseason. Missing them as well. We've got the Islanders back in action, taking on the Rangers. Matthew Barzal, 3 assists last night, by the way. That line took over the game, made some adjustments. Noah Dobson, by the way, with the winner. Looking like Varlamov gets the start tonight against the Rangers, who are 6-4-3, and Shesterkin should get the call and goal. We've got also tonight, we've got the Canadians before they play Vancouver, take on the Red Wings as Caden Goulier and Arbor Zagai, two guys to watch in Montreal on the defense. Jake Allen getting the calling goal. Caden Goulier might be in my Calder conversation later. Playing very well. Josh Anderson suspended there as well. And Billy Husso getting the calling goal. The St. Louis Blues started 3-0. They are now 3-7. They're on a 7-game losing streak, looking to end that against the Philadelphia Flyers. They're starting Thomas Greiss in goal. Don't know what to think about St. Louis. I think they lost a lot of pieces, and there's a lot of tension going on in St. Louis. But they've also were a team that were in this situation before and found a way to win a Stanley Cup. So Doug Armstrong said that Craig Berube was safe. For the Flyers, by the way, insistent that the way that they're playing is not sustainable. So keeping an eye on that as Carter Hart continues to play well for the Flyers. The Golden Knights 11-2 taking on the Maple Leafs. Probably one of the games of the night for sure, as Logan Thompson gets the call in goal. Eric Shalgren gets Logan Thompson for Vegas. Eric Shalgren for the Leafs. Ilya Samsonov, week to week injured. Matt Murray should be back soon. Leafs goaltending continues to be an interesting issue in terms of, and that was expected, but part of this is health. And Samsonov was playing pretty well before he was injured. And then you got Eric Shalgren starting, and you brought in Keith Petruzzelli to back up, signing him to a contract. The Arizona Coyotes are taking on the Buffalo Sabres. Coyotes 4-6-1, starting Carl Vamunka. And the Sabres kind of starting Eric Comrie here. Kind of slowing down a little bit. We're starting to see maybe the Sabres come back to some sort of life here. I still think they're going to be a pretty good team. I still think I don't think they make the playoffs, but I think they compete. I think they're going to push for a playoff spot, but they're stumbling a little bit right now. Here at 7-5, not stumbling, but they got off to a really hot start. But they've lost 2 in a row. So that's another one. And by the way, just looking at Cam Talbot starting tonight for the Senators. Oilers and Lightning. Oilers played a really good game against the Washington Capitals. I mean, the one thing that you can say, the Oilers are stumbling along a little bit, but some of their games have been really fun to watch. So from an entertainment aspect and an individual aspect, it's watchable. But they're playing the Eastern Conference champion Tampa Bay Lightning. I think this should be a good game. Jack Campbell's getting the start for the Oilers tonight, and Vasilevsky getting the start for the Lightning. Stars and Jets, an underrated marquee matchup. Stars off to a great start. Scott Wedgwood keeping the Stars in there when as Jake Ottinger went down to injury. The Stars are currently in first, 8-3-1. They've won 3 in a row. Then the Jets are 7-3-1 and have won 2 in a row. So quietly good matchup in there in Winnipeg, as Connor Hellebuck kind of getting back his game there a little bit. Adam Lowry, that line of Adam Lowry, Saku Melin, and Sam Gagner, a quiet little underrated line in Winnipeg. Sam Gagner was a nice acquisition in the offseason for Winnipeg. They didn't make a lot of big moves, but the Sam Gagner one has been a good addition. Predators, off that comeback win in Vancouver, heading to Seattle to take on the Kraken, who have won 4 in a row. Kevin Lankinen UC Saros getting a call in Nashville, and you've got Martin Jones getting a call in Seattle, as Seattle is currently in second place in the Pacific Division behind the Vegas Golden Knights here. So they're off to a good start. Shane Wright looks like he'll be scratched tonight. Wild and Kings, Marc-Andre Fleury starting to get things kind of back together for the Minnesota Wild. The Kings are a consistent 7-6-1. And Jonathan Quick should get the call in goal. So those are the games that are going on in the National Hockey League today. Touch on the WHL. We've got, by the way, tonight we've got the rankings, by the way, came up, and we have a new number 1, by the way, here in week 6. It is the undefeated 15-0 Red Deer Rebels, number 1 right now in the CHL. Quebec Remparts, number 2. Winnipeg Ice, number 3. Ottawa 67s, number 4. By the way, this is the CHL ranking. Sherbrooke Phoenix 5. Portland Winterhawks 6. Windsor Spitfire 7. Seattle Thunderbird, who acquired Luke Prokop earlier from the Edmonton Oil Kings. It looks like he has been sent to Seattle, so he's been added to that lineup. I think the Thunderbirds are still my personal favorite to represent, to be the WHL champion that is playing in Kamloops at the Memorial Cup. And adding Luke Prokop adds to that. Halifax Mooseheads 9, North Bay Battalion 10. The honorable mentions: Saskatoon Blades, Victoriaville Tigers, and the Everett Silvertips. In terms of games tonight, we've got 3. We've got the Edmonton Oil Kings in action tonight as they head over to Moose Jaw to take on the Warriors. Warriors are a pretty good team. Red Deer Rebels in action against the Winnipeg Ice. That should be a good game to watch. It's a marquee WHL game to watch. And then you got the Prince Albert Raiders taking on Gavin McKenna and the Medicine Hat Tigers. AHL is action, as mentioned, tonight. The Wranglers host the San Jose Barracuda in action tonight. And Barracuda 9, a couple points ahead of the Wranglers in the standings. So that's an early, interesting game to watch as well. And you've got Texas taking on Colorado, and you've got San Diego taking on Hendersonville. Didn't get to this yesterday. Apologize for it, but we'll get to this today. Peter McNabb passed away on the weekend. Passed away on November 6th. He played 14 seasons in the National Hockey League. Former Canuck, former Sabre, former Bruin, former Devil. He was a broadcaster with the Colorado Avalanche. Passed away at 70. And condolences have been out to him and his passing here. He, of course, played. He was started his career. He led the AHL in scoring in 73-74 with the Cincinnati Swords. He played only 49 and 76 games. Debuted with Buffalo that year. Scored his first NHL goal on December 15th, 1973, against the Minnesota North Stars. He was then traded to the Bruins, where he enjoyed some of the best years of his career. 35-point goal, 75 points in 6 seasons in a row. Played in the 77 All-Star game. Playoff overtime winning goals as well. Was traded to the Canucks in Vancouver. Played 2 seasons with the Canucks in 84 before he signed with the Devils. And then he began his broadcasting career with the Devils in 87-88. Spent 8 years there, moved to Colorado when the Nordiques moved to Colorado. He was a TV announcer and an analyst on NHL and NBC during the 2006 Winter Olympics, color analyst for TNT at the Olympic Games in Japan, and a studio analyst in 2002 when Winter Games in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he last 14 years was a color commentator with the Colorado Avalanche. Very sad loss in the Colorado Avalanche career. Lots of tributes have been paid tribute to him. Didn't get to it yesterday. Wanted to end the conversation today, our news pack today, with honoring and respecting the life of Peter McNabb, passing away at the age of 70 in Denver. And that will be the news pack for today. You can follow us all individually on Twitter. We've got a podcast scheduled Thursday, working out schedule kinks. Our schedules are all over the map, and we've had a little bit of sickness run in the group as well. But you can follow us all individually on Twitter. Tyler TNOBLE, Sean Beardy Canuck 03, Christian Schneidz SCHNEIDZ, Devin Gordhow 09. I am KVOLE, Shifts and Bucks on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. By the way, give Fireside Chat a follow as well, as they post once a week on Monday about what the weekly happenings of the Calgary Flames. You can also check out the Area 51 Sports Network. Gavin does a great job with the WHL show. Lots of coverage on WHL on Area 51, and as well as the CHL as well. So follow on that. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.